Welcome to the Shatterproof for Entrepreneur. This is Scott Reeb. My special guest today is my good friend, Doug Foley. Doug, welcome to the Shatterproof room.
Thanks so much for having me, Scott. An honor to be among the first few guests.
Doug, could you kind of tell everyone kind of who you are, what you do, and what's important to you?
Absolutely. I will tell you, I will start by saying the single most important thing to me is my family and friends. Second to that is helping entrepreneurs grow at every scale. So if that's people looking to start a side hustle or launch a business, small businesses trying to get bigger, or even mass corporations figuring out how to scale globally, I just have a huge spot for entrepreneurs. I think a lot of that just came from growing up in a family of small business entrepreneurs. And then I started the podcast, The Happiness of Pursuit. And I've interviewed over 150 incredible entrepreneurs, had some amazing experiences along the way. And, that led to a book deal and a TED Talk. So now I'm really just focusing on figuring out how I can serve entrepreneurs at every level and figure out how to break through each of those plateaus and get to where they want to be.
Wow. Okay. Thanks for letting us kind of giving us that what's important to you. And you mentioned the book. So let's kind of start with the book. Could you share with us what inspired you to write it's called the Breakout Blueprint, right?
Yep. So the Breakout Blueprint's designed to help people find their passion, take action, and build a lifestyle business. One of the things, I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but I've met a lot of people who are incredibly wealthy and miserable. And when I started down this path, a lot of it was written kind of to solve or scratch my own itch where, I was creating and scaling an agency, and that's right around the time you met. And it was really frustrating. Like it was burnt out. It was like I was building myself my own job and I was just trapped trying to pursue wealth. And I kind of lost focus on things that were important to me. Now, fortunately, it was no catastrophic events. There's nothing really damaging. But had I kept down that path, it probably would have ended up in divorce. So when my daughter was born, I started to realize like there's a lot more to life than just building a business to get on private jets and have fancy cars. And that focus kind of led me down the path of really diving deep into the podcast. And the thing that was interesting, the more successful the entrepreneurs that I met, they had found fulfillment in choosing businesses around the things that we're passionate about. Whether that passion was a global problem they wanted to solve, or whether it was something that they enjoyed sharing with other people. And that was kind of the genesis of pivoting my podcast into another direction, which is called The Happiness of Pursuit. And I realized that when people are working on something they're passionate about, that's where the sense of fulfillment and lasting happiness came from. And that helped me distill the principles that are in the book today. But the main piece is once somebody chooses a passion, the next step is just taking action. It doesn't matter if it's the right path. There's no perfect business, as I'm sure you've seen. But the important thing is to just act, go in a direction. And the single biggest thing I can contribute to my growth and a lot of the projects you and I are working on now is that path to just pick something, go down the path. You will learn incredible things and you will acquire skills that become valuable down the road.
Wow. In the book, I remember you talking about lifestyle businesses. How would you define that?
I think it's defined by the individual, not necessarily by me. Some people like working 80, 100 hours a week. Some people like being able to coach their kids' sports teams or, work in sprints. Maybe they work for 6 weeks and they take a month off. The important thing is for people to understand their own definition of what they want their business to be. I find more often than not, entrepreneurs, especially with those getting started, they will often create a new job for themselves, not a business. And if I could have gone back, that would have been the advice is I would have built a business to match the lifestyle I wanted to live, not try to build this big thing just to generate money to quote unquote afford what I live. More often than not, you get to this level where you have so many clients, you just don't have any time freedom anymore. I think when you start, or if you're re-engineering a business, it's really important to be clear on what you want your life to be like, and then go model the business or find a business model that matches that.
Do you find the people that are kind of creating these jobs with the crazy boss are usually what Guru would have called technicians? That's like they're experts in their field. They're really good at what they do. And so they build this business around that, and then they end up trapped because they're still trading uh, hours and dollars.
Yes. I mean, I think this is probably one of my favorite subjects is the difference between trading time for money and understanding how to leverage expertise and value. And it was something I struggled with forever. Like, yeah, I have a whole bunch of skills. I can run Facebook ads. I can help develop a marketing strategy. But I think when you can narrow down to your zone of genius and figure out that single thing that you're great at, you can do it more in a consulting capacity. And with what's happening in the AI world right now, you can leverage a lot more time by leveraging your expertise in combination with AI and create a massive amount of value for people. I mean, we just went through it. We spent the last 18 months doubling down and reshaping an entire agency to be focused on that. And the benefit for the clients is they're getting like a 10x value, but we don't bill hourly. We focus more on results, which frees us up because if they're getting a max result, I don't care if it takes us an hour or if it takes us 10 hours. It's on us to manage the results. So if you can focus more on value, that's where you can start to free up timing. But I think the next phase, like if you were to plot it out, I think most people are going to start in something like you mentioned, like I have an expertise, I'm going to take that expertise and I'm going to charge more than I'm getting paid in my job. That seems to be the first step. Then they reach a point, it's like, oh, I just kind of built a new job for myself. They start hiring people and learning to delegate. That's when they move into a small business. But then, as a small businesses grows, they just keep getting sucked back into the wheel. Once you have figured out how to provide value and get the maximum dollar in your zone of genius, let's say that's six-figure consulting. Okay. If we get to the optimum position, then I think the next position is figuring out how do you create more passive income? And I think too many people want to make that leap too early before they understand what that really is. And passive income, if you can figure out how to capture what you do in some type of program or course, that can be passive income. But I don't think there's anything that's truly 100% passive. I think every type of thing is going to require effort, management, focus, because the time you take that eye off the ball or effort, it's funny, even if I look at something like affiliate marketing or any of these online programs, you're still posting 2 to 3 times, 4 times a day, every day without taking your foot off the gas to generate the audience to convert it. So I think if you can figure out how to create, let's call it wealth, doing something you love, then be smart about how you invest that to create the passive income. That's how you can really unlock some time freedom. But a lot of people want to skip steps. There are no skipping steps. Like going through that journey, and that's why I called my podcast "The Happiness Pursuit." Like you gotta love the journey of entrepreneurship and the experiences and the people you meet along the way. That's when you start to unlock like the true lifestyle business.
Yeah, and I mentioning the journey, that kind of reminds me of something we've talked about before, which is the importance of the long game in business, right? That I mean, I've got the gray beard to prove it. I've been around quite a while, and I've had this law firm 18 years, and it's definitely been a journey, and there's been ups and downs in it. We're at a really good place right now because a lot of the things that I've learned talking to you, and you and I met at a mastermind where I got to be around people that were playing at a really high level, and I learned a lot from them on some things not to do, some things that are helpful that I do now. We both looked at the online courses and thought that's probably not the answer for the passive income that we're looking for right now. But there is this long game to business that a lot of people aren't even playing in because they're so focused on what am I going to do today and maybe tomorrow. They might be looking ahead to tomorrow, but they're not looking 18 months, 3 years down the road. What would you say to that entrepreneur?
Let me circle back to that and I'll tell you where this thinking came from. If you ask my wife, she would tell you I'm not a patient person. But when I started my career, I was really focused on becoming one of the world's best marketers. Like I would pick career choices knowing I had to acquire a specific set of skills. And over a 10-year period, I worked jobs in the e-learning space. I worked jobs in, the a lot of like the tech space and the ad space. And I went to these jobs because I wanted to learn very specific skills that I knew would be high value and in demand forever. And I think a lot of people rush too quickly to try to just do something quick or earn a quick buck, and they don't see the importance of acquiring high value skills. And that's the first step to unlocking someone's potential. So first, if you can figure out, okay, I'm going to go hire, like acquire these skills that are going to be in demand for the next 10, 20 years. Mine were all sales, marketing, leadership type things. And they just happen to be the thing I was most passionate about. The second piece, and this is more of, I took a big look at what was happening in the world and what was happening with wealth, why companies were failing. And honestly, part of it, I would blame Wall Street. So much of the focus of company is looking at how they perform quarterly. But the irony is most companies' customer journey, so the time from when they have their first interaction to the time somebody buys, is 9 to 18 months. So if I come into a company and I'm going to impact change, they don't have the patience to let that change sink in. And I talked to a few different entrepreneurs, a couple of them billionaires on my podcast. And most of what they say is if you block out the noise and you focus on what you want to do the next 3, 5, and 10 years and stay true to that direction and play the long game, you'll win. And the same thing was true. Like when I started writing my book, when I started to look at like some of the best and most valuable relationships, like we met years ago and now we're starting to work on much bigger projects. And that doesn't come overnight. And a lot of times I think people, they look for immediate gratification, but the real results come from building a foundation and slowly just growing that foundation again and again. And I have to give tribute, probably one of the best examples I've heard is from a gentleman named Marcus Murphy. He's a constant speaker, runs a couple amazing businesses, but he had gave the analogy that when he was going through school, he used to sit in the same room in his business classes, and they were always digging this trench. They're digging this foundation for a building. You know, for 3 years, it looked like nothing had happened. It went away for summer, came back, and all of a sudden, there's a 20-story building there. But it took 3 years to pour the foundation. In any good business, it takes time to build a personal brand, to build a solid foundation. And most businesses that I know are successful, like they have referrals. But that comes because they doubled down, they serve their clients well, and now that business can run with almost any advertising. They're constantly getting new clients from referrals, but very, very few people look to that and understand that, like, as you go through the journey, you will acquire skills. Your network keeps getting better and better, and you're going to be open up to more and more large projects, higher net worth individuals, as long as you just keep adopting that learning, keep pushing. But there is no growth hack. There is no lasting success. It truly is easy come, easy go.
You mentioned personal brand. How important is personal brand in today's world?
Massive. Absolutely massive. It doesn't matter if you're an enterprise, if you're an individual, like your personal brand carries a lot of weight. I can tell you that between the book and the TED Talk, it has added a comma to my income. But it took 8 to 10 years to build that. So going back to question about the long game, it's not something that comes overnight. I think that's why a lot of people get dismayed or discouraged is, you know, they're not willing to put the effort into running a podcast like you are, or creating social posts that are targeted to an audience. I think more people are looking at like, hey, what's the viral growth hack? How do I go viral? You know, it's that American Idol type mindset where just trying to get this one thing and be famous, not impactful. And I think if you're very conscious, like a personal brand, there's a really, really strong article. Kevin Kelly is the founder of Wired Magazine. He wrote an article called 1,000 True Fans. And I think too many people are focused on like followers, like having hundreds of thousands of followers, instead of like, I just want to serve this specific group of people really, really well and create content that's going to help them and build a brand around that. You can go a long, long way with a small group of followers or small group of clients, but your personal brand, even if it's not a big social one, like the reputation you have with your clients, that's the foundation of a scalable business.
Hey there, it's Scott Reed, cutting in for a quick moment. If you're enjoying the podcast and finding value in our discussions, you're going to love the Access Plan. It's designed for entrepreneurs like you, offering unlimited legal advice without the worry of high hourly fees. With the Access plan, you can get the legal support you need at a flat monthly rate so you can focus on growing your business with confidence. Head over to reblaw.com/access to learn more and join Access now and get busy shatterproofing your business. Now let's get back to our amazing guest.
How important was doing the book to your personal brand?
It was massive. I mean, it gives so much credibility because somebody can reference your thoughts. And, if they're in alignment or agreement with the process or the path that you have, it's a lot easier for them to do business with you. And there's a longer presentation I give on the psychology of how people buy. And that book is a great door opener. It adds some credibility, even going into boardrooms. And I'll be honest, it's funny. I will tell you, most entrepreneurs, even myself, they struggle with imposter syndrome.
Yep.
Like, it's like, I'm not big enough to be in this room. I haven't accomplished anything. That book is like the greatest enabler ever because very few people have a published book. Now, I'm fortunate it became an international bestseller. So it was really helpful for me, but just the art of finishing that was such a self-accomplishment, but I think from a credibility standpoint, it really helps open some doors, especially the fact that it was about entrepreneurship. It's a great door opener.
It's been an interesting, as you know, I'm working on a book right now that'll be coming out in February, and it's been a challenge doing it. It was it probably was in some ways harder than I thought it was. And you may remember I started the outlining this book in 2019. You and I were talking a lot back then, and then just kind of got stalled out. And so if you're out there and thinking about, man, I'd like to write a book, do it. One of the things that kind of made me do it was I actually paid someone to help me do it. And once I wrote a check for it, well, it wasn't a real check, but when I put some money in it, suddenly I was motivated to get it done and to work on a regular pace on it and get things done. And then it started to really roll. And I'm excited to get that out there. It was fun to take all the stuff that I've been talking about for years and then put it into one place and put it into some order and something, and then to be able to get that out there. I'm so excited, and I love the Breakout Blueprint, and it's been an important part of my journey. What would you say is the next big thing for Doug Foley?
One of the biggest things we're pivoting into now is just figuring out how to help companies enable AI within their business. And just a deeper understanding of myself. I think the next 5, 8, 10 years is going to be probably one of the biggest economic booms we'll ever see in our history. Like, I see some of the changes that we have and even some of the companies that we're working with now. Like, we were working with global billion-dollar companies that we had challenges getting into before, but now because we took an early position on AI, it is just opening up massive opportunities. And even, give you an example. One of the things I had done recently, I created a Doug bot, where I uploaded my book. A lot of the talks I give, we're constantly uploading podcast episodes. So it's learning a lot of the things I've talked about and some of the frameworks that we've developed for marketing, so we can develop marketing plans really quickly that align with the strategies and how we approach business. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see. I've been really fortunate in my network. We started doing a lot of work with helping businesses get funded. I think that's going to be cool. I think the way capital markets fund businesses is going to change immensely over the next 5 years. I think you're going to see so many alternative funding options beyond traditional banks, traditional loans open up. I think that's going to be incredible. But going back quickly to what you mentioned about a book, the single biggest thing I think I can contribute to success as an entrepreneur overall comes back to discipline. And I remember, like, I was struggling to get my book done. Like, I hated it. I got to the point, if you are writing a book, if you're writing a book, I'm sure you can relate to this. You read it, you're like, God, this thing sucks. Like, this is awful. I hate it. I don't want to publish it anymore. And then if you're disciplined enough to just write even just 250 words a day, like no matter what, I don't care if it's the worst 250 words, but like the discipline of just sitting down, writing just a little bit, moving a little bit closer towards the goal, that's when I started to have breakthroughs. And what was really astonishing to me, and this now going back to your bigger question, it developed these major habits of thought. And it helped me understand like how to break down massive problems. Like we're working on a $3.5 billion deal right now. And like it's incredibly complex. And a lot of times like I would lose sleep over it. But what I started to realize, like your subconscious is incredibly powerful. And I was in the discipline of like writing 250 words. What happens is your subconscious starts to put together the thoughts, and all of a sudden you'll eventually have a breakthrough. So whatever big business someone has, whatever problem someone's having, like just like take a breath, break it down into small chunks, and just work consistently on whatever that big goal or that big vision is. You'll be amazed at like what the subconscious unlocks. And I would put a notepad beside your bed, because for me, all those big breakthroughs happen like 3:30 in the morning when I would wake up. So have a note app, but like that power of discipline and doing small things, like it made a massive difference. It helped launch the book. Even if your company's lacking sales, like having discipline of just doing outreach every day, 3 to 5 times, or, figuring out how to publish content, like whatever the thing is, figure out like small things you can do, and they will just multiply over a year.
Yeah. And over a year, don't expect to be able to do them for 2 weeks and suddenly see results. It's like you kind of go back to that long game. It's the little things over time that make the difference.
Yeah. Like it took me 2 years to write the book. Like it is not an easy feat. And I know some people that can pump out a book in 30 days. That's just not me. Could I have? Probably, but I'd rather produce something of quality.
Yeah. I know people like that too, that can pump it out, and maybe they have less work to do than we do on other things. I don't know.
Yeah, they don't have clients. Yeah, that's for sure.
I've
That
often
is for
told,
sure.
because I work with a lot of people that are in startup mode, and looking back, it could be such a blessing to be in startup mode where you maybe have 1 or 2 clients you're working with or customers, and so you have time to work on those daily habits and creating really good discipline in your business and being creative because you have time. When I started my law firm in 2005, I left another firm and brought a ton of business with me. So I had no time. I mean, I was immediately trying to deliver excellent legal services so that people would come back. And so we just went to work. And I had to really come back a few years later and really work on that business foundation when I started getting into getting coached by other, business owners, and learning what a business coach was, and learning about some of these things that have made a big difference for me. Which leads me to my next question for you is, how important is personal development in the life of an entrepreneur?
Next to the relationship with your spouse and kids, single most important thing.
Yeah.
I will tell you, if things are not right at home, it gets very difficult to build a business. And I see too many people's lives fall apart because they let the business take the wrong priority. And the second thing is, and it's tough, especially being man, there's a song written guy named, I think it's Dax, that talks about like how hard it is balancing all those things. But I will tell you, personal development, like taking care of yourself, understanding how your brain works, understanding. It's funny. I used to have this stigma that usually it's going to be tough. You're just going to power your way through it. But let's like taking care of your mental health first and then your physical health second. Like as an entrepreneur, that's what you need to do. Like you need to be able to show up as the best version of yourself. And eventually too much stress will keep in, and it will impair your ability to provide the best value you can to your clients or to your business or to your employees. So take the time, go do things. Like if you're not taking time to do something you love, and it's okay, give yourself permission to be selfish and focus on like, where do you go to recharge? For me, it's surfing, hunting, and fishing. I do those things a lot. I moved to somewhere where I could do those things more.
Yeah.
But I don't think a lot of people pay enough attention to what's needed for you to thrive. And when you take the time to become self-aware and double down on that, you will unlock like multiple levels. You'll start to like think clearer, but a lot of people just get stuck in the weeds and thinking, oh, it has to be this way. I promise you, it doesn't. You can move, you can create the environment where you can be successful, and like find the people that are going to push you to be and work at a higher level. But you're like, to your question, like personal development, single most important thing to become a successful entrepreneur, business owner, and leader.
Yeah. And so that's that's reading books, that's going to conferences, listening to podcasts like Doug's, taking in really good information. Zig Ziglar used to say, you are who you are and where you are because of what goes into your mind. You can change who you are and what you are by changing what goes into your mind. And so you've got to make that choice, and it's discipline to make yourself do it. It's discipline even to make yourself take the time off to go have fun, because if you're in a passion business that you love, then it may not even be work to you, but you'll find yourself too wrapped up in the business, and life will go by. I'm 55 years old, and it's crazy. I can remember my grandma always telling me how fast time would go by. I'm like, Grandma, that doesn't make any sense. No, it's true. It's just life is flying by you, and if you don't stop to smell the roses, you'll eventually look back, and life will have passed you by. You may have built a great business, but you don't want your whole legacy in life to just be that you built a great business. You want to have built a great life. And so you've got to do that intentionally. Just like your business won't grow accidentally, you're not going to grow as a person if you're not spending time, with, I think to have the mental side, you've got to have the physical side. They go together. In 2005, I started the law firm. I was coaching a couple soccer teams. I was very busy and not eating well. And over the first year and a half, suddenly, and I'd stopped going to the gym. I'd gained 35, 40 pounds and really kind of hadn't even noticed. I've got body dysmorphia, and I look in the mirror and I think I always look good. And so I kind of ran past it, and someone close to me had to point out to me that, hey, you kind of let that go a little bit. You need to tighten up. And so it was kind of a wake up call for me. I was 39 years old. I was like, I don't want to go into my 40s like this. So I joined Weight Watchers, went to the gym and got on a training program and started. I had a 90-day goal, had written goals, had pictures, had a vision board for what I wanted to do and look like. And in 90 days, I'd lost 40 pounds and was back in shape and was feeling better about life, and suddenly a lot of things started to line up again by just getting the physical side right. It's very hard to be in a really good place in your head if you don't feel good. And so I would encourage you this time of year that if you're thinking about, maybe I'm not in the right spot physically, I need to make some changes, don't set New Year's resolutions, but create some plans and some goals, write them down, make them SMART goals, and figure out, how am I going to get to where I want to be? And it might take you a year to get where you want to be. Have a plan, and even look at that and say, what would the obstacles be that would prevent me from that? And write down what those obstacles are so that you're aware of them, and then have ways to work around them so that you can have some success. But in my mind, those things, they go together. And then you would add what I would say the third pillar is the spiritual pillar. And you need to be spending time with God. You need to be around other people that are like-minded, so that you aren't doing this by yourself. Because being a small business owner, entrepreneur, it's a lot like being on an island, and you get in this echo chamber, and everything you do starts making sense, or the opposite. You start thinking everything's bad, and it's all doom and gloom. And so you need to be around. I've got people like Doug that I can talk about, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Does this make sense? Or here's what's happening in my business and life. Does it make sense? And you've got to have those people if you want to stay grounded, because if you're just listening to your own thoughts, that can be a really bad place. Kind of leads me to my next question. Like, how does your faith influence your approach to business?
Massively. I will tell you a story that kind of redefined it for me. So our daughter, my wife was in her third trimester. And I remember I was sitting in the office, and I got a phone call. I said, hey, something's wrong with the baby. We don't know what it is. And for the next 12 weeks. We were doing genetic testing, trying to figure it out. We told her she had a very low chance of survival when she was born. And we were in the children's hospital when she was delivered. They had 19 specialists in the rooms, and it was so severe that when she was born, we didn't know the sex. We chose not to find out. So when she was born, they were asking me like, what is it? And I'm like, I don't care. Is she okay? Because we had been prepared for like doom and gloom. And there's two things that are important. Number one, you were talking about like you become what you focus on. If you're told for 12 weeks, like, oh, it's bad news, bad news, bad news, you're not in a good place. You don't think clearly. So, I couldn't embrace the moment. But the second thing is, if you don't believe in miracles or something higher than like yourself, and listen, I don't care what religion you choose. If you don't have faith and grounded relationships, you'll end up in a very empty life. And there are very, very hard times as an entrepreneur. Like you will run into dark periods. And if you don't have that, it's very difficult for you to pull yourself out of dark situations. And I tend that like having faith in something much bigger than just what's here in front of us is the thing that allows me to deal with harder times. And it helps me actually craft the relationships I have with people like you and, some of my other close friends. And it gives you the space to give yourself a little bit of grace when you need it. And it keeps you out of going down a very, very dark path. Doesn't matter which religious publication you read, there are foundational principles in how to live a great life. And I think a lot of people just get misguided and turn to either drugs, alcohol, sex, porn, you name it, to cope. But I encourage you, find faith, find something you believe in, and it'll give you that little bit of glimmer of hope, a little dot on the horizon to kind of walk towards when you're struggling. And I think right now there's a lot of people coming into real tough times. And I think they're going to need it more than ever to kind of endure and realize it'll restore the structures and the morality. And listen, the path we're headed down in society is not a good one. And I think, you're going to need faith to endure what's coming.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a Christ follower, and I can't imagine going through this journey of life without knowing that I have a hope beyond what I'm seeing here today. If I was all there was, if I had to rely on my skills and ability to provide for my family, I think I would be a wreck. I'm not a worrier. I'm not anxious. I know that God's my provider and I don't have to do that. I just have to be obedient and follow the steps and ask for wisdom that he puts in front of me. Thanks for being willing to kind of share some of your faith journey.
Doug, there have been so many times in my life where I'm like, I don't know where the check's going to come from, but I got faith it's going to show up somehow. And it always does, and I think whatever that gateway is for people, whether it's manifestation, whether it's Christ, whatever that is, I think it's important people start looking back to faith of their choosing. And there's more to this world than we possibly just the genetics. Way more to it. I have too many miracles happen in my life that I can't explain. So I think people need to lean into it.
Yeah. So Doug, you've been an Access member now for several years. How has being a part of the Access program affected your journey?
Massively. I think before we'd met, I was just kind of doing things ad hoc. There was no structure to it. I was all over the place, but the number of times I've had to work through hey, how do I structure this deal? Or how should I have this contract written to protect myself and make sure I have recourse should I need to use it? It's been invaluable. I mean, we've had a number of legal situations, unfortunately, but that's inevitable in the business world. And you have to have the structure to protect yourself. You have to be able to write contracts quickly, properly. And fortunately, we've had a number of business opportunities where we could actually create new businesses very quickly and jump on opportunities that otherwise I either would have done wrong on legalzoom.com or not had the wherewithal to structure things properly. And there's some big transactions coming up that had I not had the structure in place, we'd have a massive tax issue.
Yeah. Wow.
It's been invaluable.
Cool. Well, if the listeners want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Best way is to follow me on Instagram at Douglas J. Foley. Send me DMs. If you want a free copy of the book, you can go to douglasjfoley.com/book. That'll have all the tools and everything you're looking for there.
Wow, a free copy. That's really great. I have read the book when it came out, so it's definitely worth it. Go get that if you're listening. That's a resource you don't want to walk away from. Finally, Doug, I want you to look into the camera and talk to the entrepreneur that maybe is having a tough time right now. Maybe they're not feeling so shatterproof today. What advice would you give them if they're struggling?
If you're struggling, there's one thing I would recommend people really understand. Like, the harder it gets, the closer you are to a major breakthrough. The times that I wanted to quit or stop or throw in the towel or just go find a job was usually within weeks of a massive breakthrough. Like, probably the biggest client win I've had, or rediscovering, hey, what is it that I need to change in my business, or what's the big opportunity? So when you find you're struggling, realize that's the biggest part of growth. I played a lot of football in high school and golf in college. And I will tell you, the times I struggled the hardest and worked the hardest, the biggest breakthroughs always came. So if you find you're having a hard time, take a breath, figure out what you're learning, figure out who you can serve. If you need to, say a prayer, but I promise you, like, the harder it is, the more you're growing and the better the outcome's going to be. Even if, like, some of you, like, listen, if the businesses may even fail, I promise you that failure will lead to a much bigger thing, because you have learned a skill that is going to be invaluable to the future. You just may not know what that future is yet, but every struggle is an opportunity for learning, and a new opportunity will emerge.
Wow, that's powerful. Well, Doug, as we conclude our time together, I want you to give you a blessing. May you be blessed in all your endeavors. May you be prosperous in every aspect of your life. May your path be enlightened with wisdom, health, and fulfillment. May your work not only achieve success, but create an unbreakable business legacy. Thank you for joining us in the Shatterproof Room, Doug. If you're listening, I hope you liked it. If you did, subscribe, and we'll see you next week on the Shatterproof Entrepreneur.
Thank you.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as professional advice. While I'm your host, Scott Reed, and a lawyer, I'm not your lawyer, and this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship. The views expressed by my guests are their own and not mine, and they may not even reflect the opinion of the Shatterproof Entrepreneur podcast. So we strive to provide valuable and accurate content, but we make no representations as to the accuracy, completeness, or suitability of any information to your particular situation, and won't be liable for any errors or omissions for the application of them. Always consult a professional or in the respective area that we've discussed before making any personal or business decisions.